In the bustling outskirts of a small town in southeastern Nigeria lived a young man everyone called Chika, but most people knew him as Papa Emeka. He was in his late 20s. Tall, lean from constant labor, with dark skin polished by the sun and palms hardened by work. His shirts were always faded from too many washes. His slippers had been stitched more than once by the roadside cobbler. Poverty followed him like a stubborn shadow. But respect followed him too. Because Chika had one habit nobody could understand. No matter how little he had, he shared it. Every morning before sunrise, when the sky was still gray and the roosters were only beginning to clear their throats, Chika would wake up quietly. He would fold his thin mattress, wash his face with water from a plastic bucket, and check the small pot in the corner of the room. If there was leftover gari, he would soak it. If there was rice, he would divide it carefully. If there was nothing, he would step out early to see if he could borrow bread from the kiosk woman and promise to pay later. Instead of heading straight to the mechanic workshop where he worked as an apprentice, he would first stop under an old mango tree by the roadside. There sat 3 elderly people who had long been abandoned by their families. One had cataracts that clouded his eyes white. One had a bent back and shaky hands. The third, Mama Ngozi, could barely walk without dragging her left leg. Papa Emeka don come. Mama Ngozi would shout happily whenever she saw him approaching. Chika would kneel slightly in greeting. Good morning, Mama, have you eaten? Quote, sometimes he would divide the food into 3 portions so small that even a child would complain. Yet he would smile as they ate. Sometimes he would pretend he had already eaten so
Yes,
they would not insist he join them.
Sure there's food
Then
here?
he would dust his hands and head to work with an empty stomach. People talked. Kindness does not fill a pot, they whispered. He is foolish. Quote, he wants the whole village to clap for him. Quote, but Chika never defended himself. He simply continued. At home, however, the air was different. His wife, Amara, had just given birth to their son, Emeka. The baby was soft and small, with wide curious eyes. Expenses were rising like
Expenses are rising like flood water after heavy
Hospital
rain.
bills.
Milk no dey
One
die pass hospital
afternoon,
bills.
Amara
Rent
stood
money
in their
no dey.
one-room apartment, wrapper loosely tied, baby strapped to her back. The pot on the stove was empty. Smoke no longer rose from it. You gave them the rice again?
They
She
have
asked,
nobody.
her voice
And
low
with
but
that
tight.
now,
Chika
this child
washed
did not
his
ask to be
hands
born
slowly
into
in a
hunger.
small bowl
You gave
and
them the
avoided
rice
her
again.
eyes.
They have
They
nobody.
have nobody,
And with
he
that now,
replied.
this
And we
child did
do,
not ask to be
she
born
shot
into
back.
hunger.
The baby began to cry. Amara bounced him gently, but her jaw tightened. You are a father now. This child did not ask to be born into hunger. Quote, Chika sighed. He did not raise his voice. He never did. God sees everything, he said softly. It will pay. Quote, Amara laughed bitterly. Will God buy milk? Quote, that question hung between them like smoke. Months passed. Chika's generosity did not reduce. If anything, it increased. One rainy evening, he saw a widow struggling to hold down the zinc sheets on her leaking roof. Without thinking, he climbed up, hammer in hand, rain beating against his back as he fixed the roof while she held a lantern below. Another day, he saw a young boy collapse near the market from heat and hunger. Chika carried him to a nearby clinic and paid the small consultation fee with the only money he had meant for his own transport home. When a pregnant woman went into labor at night and there was no motorcycle available, Chika ran across the village barefoot to wake a commercial rider, begging him to help. He promised to pay later. At work, his master sometimes scolded him for being late. You cannot save the whole world, the man snapped once. Chika lowered his head. I am sorry, Oga. Quote, but he continued anyway. Meanwhile, the landlord began knocking harder. 2 months' rent,
Chika,
he shouted,
pay me
hitting the
my
metal
house
door.
rent,
Neighbors peeped
or
from
I
behind
will throw
curtains.
you out
Amara
of
stood
my
behind
house.
Chika, humiliation burning in her chest. That night she cried quietly, back turned to him. You choose strangers over your family, she whispered. Chika lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the baby breathe. His heart ached, but he could not change who he was. The breaking point came when Chika earned a small amount of money from repairing a generator. Instead of buying provisions for the house, he used half of it to buy yam and beans for an old blind man abandoned by his sons. News reached Amara before he returned. She waited in the compound, baby on her hip. You are not serious,
Care more about
she
outsiders
shouted
than your
before
own blood.
neighbors. You are not a man.
not
Quote,
serious.
murmurs filled the air.
You are
Chika
not
stood
a
still,
man.
eyes lowered. His fingers twitched
more
slightly,
about
but he said
outsiders than
nothing.
your own
You care
blood.
more about outsiders than your own blood,
That's a
she
man.
cried. That night, they did
Chika,
not speak.
you are
When
stealing
Emeka
from
turned
me?
1 year old,
Sir,
Chika was
no, I
accused falsely of
didn't.
stealing spare
Liar,
parts
get
at the
out of my
workshop.
shop.
Without investigation, he was dismissed. He walked home slowly, tools wrapped in cloth. Amara's face drained of hope when she saw him. So now we have nothing. Quote, Chika nodded.
Amara,
the next
where
morning
are
she
you
packed her
going?
clothes. I am going to my mother's house, she said. When you are ready to think like a father, come for us.
Come for us.
Quote,
No,
she
please
left.
don't
Months
leave.
passed. Chika survived by loading cement, washing cars, clearing gutters. Yet even in hunger, he shared. Then one evening, Amara returned. But only to drop
Amara,
a
you
mecha,
came back.
now
Thank
over a
God.
year
I
old.
cannot continue
cannot
like
continue
this. I
like
am
this,
leaving.
she said flatly. I am leaving. Quote,
Your mama
she
no
walked
want
away.
return.
This time she did not return.
We will go to
Chika
the
wrapped his son
village
in a blanket and
tomorrow.
traveled to his village to stay with his aging mother. The bus was overcrowded. A mecha cried from hunger. Passengers complained. Chika rocked him gently. My son, endure small. Quote, his mother welcomed them with tears. Life in the village was not easy. The house had cracked walls and a leaking roof. But it was shelter. And even here, Chika continued helping. He farmed during the day, carrying a mecha on his back when necessary. When an old man's goat went missing in the bush, Chika spent hours searching until he found it trapped in thorns. When the community well broke, he volunteered to dig and repair it. When flood destroyed a neighbor's cassava farm, Chika gathered young men and helped replant. When a little girl fell into a shallow ditch during Harmattan, he pulled her out and cleaned her wounds. When a traveling trader's goods fell off his bicycle, Chika helped gather every item and refused any payment. 3 years passed like this. People still whispered. Some admired him quietly, others still called him foolish. His son Emeka grew into a cheerful boy who followed his father everywhere. Papa, why do you always help? The boy
Because
once
one
asked.
day, someone
Chika
may need
smiled
help,
faintly.
and I pray there will
Because
be
one
somebody
day,
there.
someone may need help, and I pray there will be somebody there. Quote, then one dry season afternoon, a convoy of vehicles entered the village, raising dust. Villagers gathered. From one of the cars stepped a well-dressed man in his 40s. Chika squinted. The man walked straight toward him. Do you remember me? He asked.
Years
Chika
ago,
searched
I
his
collapsed in
face.
the market.
Years earlier, this man had been the young boy who collapsed in the market from hunger. Chika had carried him to the clinic and paid his hospital fee. After that day, the boy's uncle had taken him to the city. Now he stood before Chika as a successful businessman. I have searched for you, the man said, voice shaking slightly. You saved my life. Quote, villagers watched in shock. The man signaled his driver. Bags of rice, cartons of provisions, farming equipment, a brand new motorcycle, an envelope thick with money. Gasps filled the air. This is just the beginning, the man said. I want to build you a proper house. I want to sponsor your son's education. I want to open a workshop for you. Quote, Chika stood frozen, eyes moist but steady. His mother began to cry openly. The village that once whispered now clapped and praised him. Within months, a new house stood where the old mud one had been. A small mechanic workshop opened at the roadside. Emeka was enrolled in a good school. Chika's life changed. Word spread to the town. Amara heard about it from a friend. She was sitting in her new lover's house, her hand resting on her swollen stomach. You mean Papa Emeka? Her friend said excitedly over the phone. He is now doing well. A big man sponsored him. They built him a house. Quote, Amara's throat tightened. It was too late. She was already pregnant for another man. She stared into space long after the call ended, memories flooding back. The quiet man who never shouted. The man who gave even when he had nothing. Tears gathered in her eyes. But some doors, once closed, do not open again. Back in the village, Chika stood outside his new workshop one evening, watching his son play in the sand. The same gentle spirit still lived in him. And when he saw an elderly woman struggling to carry firewood, he walked over without hesitation. Some things never change. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to this channel for more powerful and emotional African stories.
Ready for this, champ?
Yes, it's amazing!
You earned it. Let's go.
Wow!